Mr. Biggs is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, Democrats have said the events of the Capitol on January 6th were an assault on our democracy. And if that's true, if disorderly conduct in a restricted building is an assault on democracy, then what do we call setting fire to a federal court in Portland, Oregon, where people inside, what do we call that? For a year, we watched riots in our American cities, and House Democrats have remained silent or actually supported the violence. The federal courthouse in Portland was under attack every night, and Democrats said nothing, and I'd like it. Please play video number 1. Madam Chair, I'd like my time stopped while we're waiting for the video to be queued up and played. Madam Chair, as we're watching this rioting, this insurrection, this violation of the rule of law, this attempt to change our government system taking place in Portland, I wonder why Democrats have refused to hold hearings regarding those riots. We should all condemn every form of political violence, in fact, all violence. And as we watch this, I have unmistakably condemned violence in Portland, like we're seeing here, as well as violence in the Capitol on January 6th. I encourage my colleagues to do the same. I think you can stop the tape now. Thank you. Stop the video now. Thank you. Now, Representative Lynch implied that Representative Heiss didn't know what he's talking about when he said the ellipse, walking the ellipse to the Capitol takes about 45 minutes. Representative Lynch said, it's just 2 blocks, a couple of minutes. Just all he has to do, Mr. Lynch, take a look at your mapping app. You'll see it's 45 minutes when there's no crowd, much less when there is a huge crowd. I want to go to Mr. Miller and just clarify a few points, as well as Mr. Rosen, so please stand by. Mr. Miller, I believe you testified that you had all the authority you needed without talking to President Trump on January 6th. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And Mr. Rosen, you also said you didn't need to talk to President Trump on January 6th because you also had all the authority that you needed to act. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Miller, you talked about an organized conspiracy. That's the quotes I have from you earlier in testimony about what took place on January 6th in some respects. Was it organized, the attack?
I don't know. I think we're going to have to find out through forums like this and further investigation, but it appears that way based on the communications protocols and whatnot.
Okay. Thank you. Now, it's got to be hell to have Donald Trump living in your head like my colleagues across the aisle have. Everything they do is based on what Donald Trump said or didn't say. But the reality is he did talk about moving peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol. One last clarification for you, Mr. Miller. The Democrats keep talking about breaching the Capitol in their timeline, but there's a big difference between breaching the outer barriers of the Capitol that surround the Capitol versus actually getting into the Capitol building, is there not?
That's exactly what I was trying to explain, yes.
And so some of their timeline is screwed up because they don't delineate and distinguish between those two important facts.
I think there's a misunderstanding about when you talk about the security perimeter versus entering the Capitol.
Yeah, you're too diplomatic. I say they screwed up their timeline. So in my last little bit of time, Madam Chair, I want to submit to the record 4 different pieces of of media that have come in detailing the treatment of protester Christopher Worrell, as well as Paul and Marilyn Hooper from Alaska. One is a Politico article dated January 6, defendants win unlikely dim champions as they face harsh detainment. Capitol riot, another Politico article, Capitol riot suspects held in D.C. are in restrictive housing, district says. Another one is FBI tortures Proud Boy member kept in isolation for 23 hours a day while awaiting trial for bashing a window out at U.S. Capitol, faces 20-year prison term. And what did January 6 patriots and Guantanamo inmates share? Another periodical. With that, Madam Chair, I'll yield back.
Without objection. The gentleman